Today is National Dog Day, and to honor the occasion, UK HealthCare invited us to follow one of the therapy dogs and his handler.
You know, therapy dogs play a real big role in bringing joy to patients and staff over at the hospital. WKYT's Mariah Conjito introduces us to Moki as he reports for duty.
Are you here to visit Moki? People just light up when they see the dogs. There's something very comforting and relaxing to just sit and pet the dog.
Moki and his handler Davis Dickens roam the floors of the hospital every week.
Moki. It's just really nice to be able to be a part of providing something that's missing for patients in a hospital setting.
Getting stopped right and left by staff and patients eager to smother him with love and get it in return.
All of the dogs enjoy doing this work. They like being with people.
Moki and Dickens are one of roughly 15 teams who volunteer in UK HealthCare's Canine Counselors program.
We've had teams who are there when, for instance, pediatric patients are going through challenging procedures, and then we even have had teams who have assisted families when they have had to let go of a loved one.
To be a part of the therapy program, the handler, who typically owns their dog, gets their dog trained through a therapy dog organization. They go through various evaluations to get certified.
If you have a high energy dog who tends to get distracted and needs to work on impulse control, that might be longer. Some of our teams, I know their dog kind of was just ready.
This is different than emotional support dogs, who Dickens says only provide comfort for their owner and don't go through the same level of training.
Good boy.
These canines, who come in all shapes and sizes, can help people recover from or cope with things like anxiety, cancer, heart disease, and mental health disorders.
There is research that interacting with animals does decrease heart rates and blood pressure.
Dickens says at the end of the day, Moki is her pet when he sheds his vest off after a day of work. Mariah Conjito, WKYT.
Always a good day with Moki, right? And Dickens says if you are interested in their program, note that your dog doesn't have to be perfect, just directable minds, in other words. We have a link to the program's website in this story on our WKYT News app.
I'm so jealous of that story that she got to love on Moki today. Yeah.